We looked at the proofs and went, oh shit, how about if we trim the covers off, grind the spine, put a new cover on? Well, then the book's going to be short, the inside gutter's going to be tight, the cover won't stick the right way, the book will be the wrong size. No. And they had to scrap a whole press run, but I couldn't take a book with the wrong cover. So there's a little tip for the 20 bucks for overnight, or 30 bucks for overnight, you get two, and then bring one of Kinko's, trim the spine and put on a comb bind so it lays flat on the table and you can fill it with notes for the rewrite. All right. Now, before I start, one of the things the Tea Party wants to do is hold the politicians' feet to the fire. And I need a recording secretary for this. Is there somebody with decent handwriting? I'm going to make some notes. I don't want to tape record. I ain't got to listen to the tape. Does anybody got decent handwriting? Okay. I want to collect some ideas. We're going to hold their feet to the fire. I've heard it 1,000 times. The only thing I've heard more is that Marco Rubio is a rising star. I'm so tired of hearing this. So rising star. Okay, so we elected all these Tea Party guys who are going to push back against Republican leadership and against the whole government apparatus. And they're going to cave like they always do, and they're going to vote for things they don't like, and they're going to go back on their principles, and leadership's going to tell them, here's how it works. So welcome to the Congress, we're glad you're here, we're going to assign you an aide who can keep an eye on you. That's what they do. And if you want a committee chairmanship, or you want to be on a good committee, or you want to get reelected, or you want money from within the state, or you want money from without of the state to help your reelection campaign, and you want to get invited to the parties, if you want to be part of the process, you got to follow leadership. And then you can either stand on principle, or you're a one-termer, you're out, you're isolated and ostracized, and you're abandoned. And they cave. And there's others, you know, where do you stand on sugar price supports? If you're for them, I got money for you from the growers. If you're against them, I got money for you from the candy makers. Where do you stand? You don't even know what sugar price supports are. So does anybody have any idea on how to hold the politicians' feet to the fire, short of unelecting them 2 years from now?
Kidnap their children?
Write that down. Kidnap their children. I don't know that that'll make the A-list, but we're going to have it.
I'm not a legal background, but to me, a lot of these people are committing treason, and I don't see anybody coming in there and threatening that stuff.
Charges of treason. Let's add charges of malfeasance.
How about treason?
Well, we'll do them both.
Treason.
Not everything's treason.
Sedition, if you're offended.
Treason can only be done during wartime.
S-A-N-C-E.
We don't have a declared war on
I have one.
That's a separate problem. Yes, ma'am.
Supporting local businesses instead of global corporations.
Supporting local businesses. Any others? See, this is part of the problem. You come here for dog and pony show, and I don't blame you. I enjoy it.
Next to kidnapping would be assassination.
We're going to leave that one off the list.
How about YouTubing their campaign promises and then their retraction?
Wow. YouTube their campaign promises.
Disrespectful comedic propaganda.
Ooh. Can she write fast enough?
Campaign promises.
Right. And a disrespectful YouTube
Comedic propaganda.
comedic propaganda. Where did you get these words? I started, hold your ideas for a second while she keeps writing. You help her.
Alan?
Yes.
I took shorthand, I'm doing it.
You're doing it shorthand.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
So back each other up just in case you compare notes. We come here for the dog and pony show. What's happening with the Tea Parties, the one that I go to most near my house, they're becoming a deliberative body. They're becoming a think tank and a thought-generating apparatus. They said we should operate under Robert's Rules of Order last time. Instead of having a crazy free-for-all and everybody's talking at once, if you know Robert's Rules, and we actually sell that book, it begins with saying that the rules should never interfere with the smooth flow of the meeting. So what they're really saying is you talked and you talked and you talked. They want civility so we can hear what's going on and be deliberative and add our brains together and actually make change. Dream up programs like Ernie's and then find people to implement outside government channels. So I think this is good, and I would encourage Ernie to do a little of this each time, because that attracts people, that exercises your brain. That's half the reason you come here, not just to sit and listen to me, or especially listen to him. Yes, sir.
I want ignore them on the list.
Ignore them. And I'll add that. Shunning, public shunning. They get up to talk, you do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I like that one. That's a good one.
Stoning, public stoning on the list.
Tar and feathers.
Yes.
I like the lefty idea suggested recently that politicians should have to wear a suit, sort of like a NASCAR race car that has the emblems of their sponsorship on the outside.
Yay, I like that. I agree, that was a good one, yeah.
Keller Brown and Root.
And if we can't get them to wear emblem suits, we could put pictures of them in emblem suits with the emblems on the internet, and it'll go all over the place.
Yeah.
Great idea.
That is a great idea. Most worthy.
Have a kind of a people's jury, not a great people's grand jury, start claiming they violated this and that law and just say that they've been indicted.
A people's grand jury, I love it. Yes.
Video cameras in the office so we can all be on the internet to watch every little move they make. And then construction fines are double if they commit any offenses in that room.
So let me understand that you want video cameras in their offices.
Yes.
Put it on the list. Some of these are going to be more likely than others. You had one.
How about drug testing?
Put alcohol testing on it.
There you go.
Put prostitute testing.
Put prostitute testing on it. And bestiality. And young pages.
Register for their DNA.
All votes are written down. So you have a record.
No voice votes. This will be quite a list, and some of them will be easy to implement, others will not. Yes, Hal?
I want them, all the politicians, to be implanted with GPS locators and microphones operating 24/7.
All right. And recordings.
I have a question. You want some of the-
Yes.
How about we just eliminate the Federal Reserve and then all of this is really just goes away on its own?
Okay, let's hold him on that note. I don't have time today, Ernie looked out. I have plenty of time today. I don't have time today to go through policy, but the next time we meet, we should do policy issues. Because one of the problems the Tea Party group had was, the problem is the taxes. No, the problem is the spending. No, it's the school curriculum. No, it's accountability. It's the borders. Everybody had a different problem, and that's the meaning of life. Ernie, I was saying that somebody brought up a policy issue as opposed to a way to keep control of the politicians, and I was suggesting that maybe next time, instead of looking at this problem, next we'll look at solutions. We should look at policy issues. What is the problem in America? How do you define it? And then how do you solve it? And you'll find everybody thinks there's a different problem. Curriculums, taxes, spending, size of government, constitutionality, morality, ethics, accountability, and this is the problem. It reminds me of a joke. The heart and the stomach are having a fight. And the heart is saying, I'm the most important because I pump the blood. And the stomach's going, I'm the most important because I digest the food. And then the asshole shuts up and they all die. You can't say it's the liver. You can't. You can't say it's the taxes. All these pieces need to be there, even the liver. So we got to be careful about saying this is the problem, but we could identify some and focus our efforts on those, and then everybody's got their own peripheral issues. I'm deeply embedded in the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, which I'll get to in just a moment. Yes?
To me, it's a consumer thing. They're sitting there lying to us, saying they're going to do this, do that, knowing they won't. Can you come in on the consumer side of it and sue them for voter fraud of some sort, misrepresentation?
Sue them for voter fraud and
because they're sitting there
misrepresentation.
making all these statements, have no intention of doing it.
A national strike.
A national strike.
Well, that brings up the point of getting rid of their immunity, whether it be judges, prosecutors, or politicians.
Judges, prostitutes, and politicians?
Yeah, and other scumbags. But they all have what's called absolute immunity, although there's no law saying it, they all claim it, and that's how they get away with everything.
Challenge absolute immunity. You bet. Okay, two more. Karen?
I think they should live in their district and vote from here.
Live in their districts and vote from here, okay? Yes, sir.
Whatever the list, the final list is, everybody needs to be on board with that list. From Arizona to New York to Florida to Washington.
We're gonna circulate it, and since that's a comment, we'll get one more in. We'll get two more, because he looks desperate, but Chris has something to say. And then if you have ideas in the middle of my talk, just interrupt me, I won't care.
Stop giving them their power by voting.
Don't vote. Well, that's 2 years from now, but put it on the list, don't vote. We gotta do something in the next 2 years. Come on, Michael. Ernie, it's his fault that I'm running late.
Add their, I think somebody else mentioned it, put their DNA in the DNA registry so that they,
And fingerprints.
the fingerprints, anything.
Fingerprints probably already are.
Make them file with sex
Like any kind of criminal.
Okay. DNA in the criminal database. If you got ideas, tell you what, write them down on a piece of paper and give them to this young lady or this young lady. You get to pick, right? You have choice. And ladies, you'll give me a copy of that list. You'll email me a copy, and I'll make sure it gets done up right. And I'll put it in my email blast, which now reaches 250,000 people.
Hey, we could make the whole thing easier. Let's make it illegal for them to have any kind of bodyguards or protection.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Just want everybody to make sure when you get this email list that it has ignore them on the list.
Have ignore public shutting.
No, it may be on your list. I want to make sure it's on his list.
Ernie, I'll send it to you and you can circulate it any way you want after or take away from it. It's free speech. Speaking of free speech, before I get started, no, I'm starting. When the constitutional carry law was enacted and implemented on July 29th, nobody needed to go to the government to get a permit to discreetly carry a firearm. You're all familiar with that? Yes? Yes. The trainers, we had created a government cartel of trainers who were making their living at the government rice bowl. You had to get a permit or they would arrest you for possession of property, for simply having a firearm. Since 1994 we've been fighting this, so it's 16 years, 5 years dedicated with the Arizona Citizens Defense League. We passed constitutional carry. You don't need a test, an application, a class, a shooting class, an instructor, a fingerprint, a criminal database, a plastic-covered permission slip, and an expiration date to carry a firearm discreetly as long as you're a law-abiding adult. That's the requirement. If you're wanted for axe murder in 3 states, you don't get this right. But you can move here from Zambia. You can visit from Ethiopia. I don't care. If you're a law-abiding adult, you can discreetly carry a firearm and you're breaking no law. This is great. But what this created was a free market opportunity that I recognized because trainers were complaining, I won't be able to run my business if the government doesn't force people to take my class. Don't you understand? They didn't have enough business sense. Government forced you to take the class, so they had business. And it was a thriving industry. They did very well. Only 2% of the public was willing to get the permit. 2%. But 50% of the public has a gun. So now government leaves the training field. They create a vacuum, this huge void that the free market can step in and fill. And your market goes from 2% of the Arizonans to 50% of the Arizonans. That is a 25-time increase in the size of your prospective market. So how do you market to people that they ought to go take a gun class? You can carry the gun. Maybe you should take a safety class, a training class, a tactical class. Learn how to take a stance. Learn how to draw. Learn how to take a grip. Learn how to align for the shot. It's easy. It's fun. Anybody can do it. It's the American way. It's the American way. Everybody should do this. So I decided we ought to reinstill the culture of marksmanship that this nation used to have. We ought to be the nation of marksmen that the founders spoke about that we have lost.